Hey everybody, it's Nerfs here, and it's time to Nerfs and chill. It's been a very long day for me. And here we are finally reviewing the Monday Week 3 PTS patch notes for the Elder Scrolls Online Harrowstorm DLC version 5.3.2 Week 3. And it's caused quite an uproar, at least from, from my end, as I'll explain it here in a bit. But let's go over the patch notes together real quick. From what I've glanced over, there aren't really any big changes, but they have a section called Big Changes, I just noticed. But seems like they just did a number of fixes for the Harrowstorm dungeons, applied fixes or adjustments for several item sets, and they've implemented one fix for block, and I'm going to assume there's more, for the new animations of block and so forth, and how it's being processed behind the scenes in the system, and are still investigating additional situations where you may appear to be blocking but are not gaining the damage mitigation. Okay, hopefully they fix that by live. It is the PCEU players' turn to have their own characters transferred to the PTS. If you are a North American player and you primarily play on North America, you're only gonna see templates, or you can make your own templates. Anyway, let's see. Let's look over the patch notes. Gestures Festival. You and I both know on this channel we don't really go over the in-game events much, so we're going to skip over that. Monster abilities. Shade Sentinel. Fixed an issue where Shadow Slice did not behave correctly when blocking. This is a Clockwork City overland mob. Dungeons and group content. Fang Lair. Okay, this is from the Dragon Bones DLC. Orin the Blackened Durvacun. They will now turn to face the Animus Crystals and using it. It's just a visual bug. Visual bug. Visual bug. Okay. For Elsewhere, the following abilities in Sunspire Trial will now play the correct impact sound effects: Alkosh's Will Furious Sweeps, Fury of Alkosh's Furious Swipe, and Fiery Rage. To be honest, I did notice that some of the audio cues were missing since like the Elsewhere PTS, but I just kind of like... that trial is a bit more visual than it is audio in my opinion, so I guess great fix, why not? Alright, the Harrowstorm DLC game pack. So we've done Icereach hard mode and Unhallowed Grave hard mode on the PTS. You guys can watch it actually on my YouTube channel if you're interested to see what the dungeons are like. But long story short, Icereach hard mode was fine. I don't think they need to adjust the Icereach hard mode fight itself. Though I think they need to maybe make the fight somehow longer or something to show the mechanics of each boss that you kind of figure out on the hard mode fight, because they die so fast for even like groups with not, you know, the best DPS in the world. So I don't know about that. Let's see if they did anything with that. Fix several instances of text and voiceover mismatches throughout the dungeon. Remove the fake augur of the obscure, the witches are displayed. The door just before Bonnie's laboratory door is now open by default, okay? Now deals more damage with his melee strikes while Glacial Rage is active. I think this is the giant boss. He now smashes a partially formed Frost Atronach when he rises up and breaks out of his chains. Okay. The Elfbane armor set no longer causes fire radiation to stop dealing damage, okay? Viarog the Shambler. So really nothing nerfed, nothing really buffed either, except maybe like the Charge, the Tusk Scraper boss. But I think that's fine. I think that's fine, especially for like the little reward it gives for most players. I'm kind of disappointed, as that one comment on my previous video, one of my previous videos said, it's a shame that there's no skin or personality coming with the new dungeons. So shout out to that commentator. But yeah, I'm kind of disappointed with the rewards. It's okay. I mean, clearly it's aimed more towards people coming back to the game, or newer players, which is fine. So, whatever. But I think the Icereach hard mode fight itself is fine. I don't think they need to touch it. I don't think they need to nerf it or buff it. I think it was a perfectly acceptable level of difficulty for everybody. Unhallowed Grave. So this is pretty much the opposite of Icereach hard mode, because Unhallowed Grave, before the final boss fight, every fight was fun except for that one dude with the 2 Flash Atronachs. I won't spoil it, but every fight in this dungeon was fun. Even the last boss hard mode, even though it was lackluster, it was still really, it was a shock factor. It was really fun seeing that huge Bone Goliath just pop out of nowhere. So hopefully they maybe buff the last boss Hardman, because it felt like we had absolutely no idea what we were doing in the PTS when we stopped uncleared Hardman. I don't think that's a Hardman. I think that's more of a non-Hardman kind of thing, but whatever. Keeper of the Kiln. Oh, this was a really fun boss. The fire event ability will now correctly end when the Keeper of the Kiln is defeated. Okay. Fenorian will no longer hang out in the kiln longing for the return of his new player friends. Player characters that perish in the upper grapple point areas will now have their corpses teleported to the lower section. Oh, that's good. That's a good one. Ondagor the Mad Malediction no longer disables a grappling post on the central island. Okay, Spirit Lance is no longer cast in between your Soul Shatter. Now accurately. Okay, that's good changes. And this is the final boss, Ciannait Tomb Scald. Blocked access to locations that can be used to exploit the boss. Fair enough. Imbued skeletons will no longer have a chance to persist when the encounter persists. Cool. Extra rituals present as part of Hardman will no longer persist when the encounter resets. Adjusted the timing. On Freezing Breath, and this is the two things that are spewed out by that huge Bone Goliath in the last boss, and they increased the damage of Freezing Breath on Hardman. So I'm kind of excited to see what they exactly mean by increase the damage of Freezing Breath, because we blocked the Freezing Breath if I remember correctly, and it didn't hurt at all. So hopefully, maybe it's gonna take, I don't know, like a chunk out of our health. But otherwise, I think the dungeon fixes or adjustments are, for the most part, fine. Moving on. The Refabrication Committee. So as you guys know, if you keep up with my Twitch stream or even this YouTube channel, we took a raid team to the PTS. Not necessarily like a raid team that always raids together, but just people who volunteered to test the PTS Veteran Halls of Fabrication. We went in there and we made this video, or we streamed it, and I made a video of summarizing it. Code also has a fantastic forum post on the public test server sub-forum section if you guys want to look it up. Code wrote it all up, wrote the feedback. I also wrote the feedback and forwarded it to the devs. Overall, the nerfs to Veteran Halls of Fabrication, if you guys have not yet watched that video or checked out the forums for our feedback, the nerfs were, some of it was misguided. Like, nerfing the health of the bosses is like not something they should have probably done. It wasn't really the health of the bosses, it was more so the other little things during the boss fight, like the poison injections, like 10 of them targeting a player on the first boss. The ads spawning too close on the Refabrication Committee. And I think this is it. Increase the minimum range at which the Reclaimer can summon ruined fabricants in the fight. This should provide more time. I bet Finn wrote this. This should provide more time to kill the ruined fabricants before they reach the Reclaimer and become empowered. This was a huge pain point for every... I don't care what group you're in. I don't care if you're in endgame progression. I don't care if you're in the progression group. I don't care if you're in the best fucking group or the worst fucking group. This was a huge major pain point. There are other things I feel like they should add to this trial, adjust in this trial, like telegraphs for upstairs, especially for console players. And a couple other things, but overall, I think the nerfs, or rather adjustments, I suppose, in this context, because they want to make Halls of Fabrication more accessible to the general majority of the player base, are fine. I think for the most part, 70-80% of it, they've accomplished their goal of making it more accessible while still retaining it somewhat as a moderate level of difficulty in terms of content for most groups. It's not like you're gonna go in there, in my opinion, and get a TikTok tormentor on the first day as a raid group. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, great adjustment. I hope to see, perhaps not even if they're not on the PTS passions, I hope to see more adjustments made to this trial to perhaps improve the quality of life in there, basically. Orsinium DLC game pack, the Ashes of Our Fathers. Okay, whatever. Combat and abilities. Okay, here's the juicy section. Okay, I feel like I've been talking for too long. Anyway, combat and gameplay. Combat and abilities. Fixed an issue where jumping or entering water while activating a block could cause your character to fail to gain the benefits of block. Okay. Nightblade fixed the visual effect. Warden fixed an issue with the visual effects where this ability could display at incorrect angles. Okay, Fallen Growth. Enchanted Growth. They should probably look into the whole budding seeds thing, or even the corrupted pollen thing, where like the animation bugs out for your character. So hopefully they check into that. Werewolf. Oh boy. my favorite subject. Fixed an issue on the werewolf introduction quest where your ability bars could be empty. Okay. Oh man, werewolves are not getting love compared to vampires this year. Alright, item sets. This is going to be an interesting one. And Aegis Collar. This has been tested quite a bit by other content creators, and I'm aware of it. Reduce the duration to 11 seconds from 12 seconds. It's actually apparently a really good set. Increase the cooldown to 12 seconds from 10 seconds. Reduce the damage per tick to 3,730 from 4,880. Okay, duration. I think based upon numbers we've seen, it's even with this adjustment, or rather, if you want to call it nerfs, I think it's still gonna be a decent set. So we'll see what happens. Dune Ripper's scales increases the amount of armor this set grants to 5,310, up from 4,300. This change was missed when we originally implemented Grand Guardian, okay? Elfbane fixed an issue where the set was not increasing the duration of wall or fire or its morphs. Okay, so they haven't really nerfed it. Oh no, better get your Elfbane, boys and girls. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the finalized live patch is. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of skip over this one. I'm gonna save this for the last part of the video because this is something I kind of want to talk about more in depth. So if you're not really interested in watching the rest of the video and you just kind of interested, like a lot of people right now, in why they changed Iceheart and so forth, I'll put a timestamp in the description below. But otherwise, I'm gonna save that for the last part of the video because I got a lot to say about that. Ciannait's Nightmare, fix an issue. Okay, Mother Ciannait. Ciannait? I don't know how to say mother set. Reduces duration to 6 seconds each, down from 10 seconds each. And the cooldown, so basically it's Iceheart on live. Increase the shield value to 5,000 from 3,000. Still fucking, in my opinion, useless. This set now also restores 600 magic if the shield is broken. Okay. And also, developer comment. The set's initial design felt lackluster compared to some alternatives and didn't feel like it brought anything special to the table in comparison. While we want to set that would be too defensively enabling, we will also want to make sure that builds utilizing cast times. Man, I'm sure there's going to be some meme down in the comment section below about that the devs loving cast times. Such as heavy attacks or channels have a slight buffer zone since they leave themselves vulnerable while they partake in these actions. We've opted to help this set stand out a bit more by rewarding offensive players who get full use out of a shield with a slight magic restore, as well as increasing chances could happen by reducing the overall cooldown. So for those of you who don't know, right now this is the PTS. This is the Mother Ciannait, or Sana, I don't even know how to pronounce the name. The Mother set, okay? And compared to Iceheart, it doesn't have a spell crit bonus, and the TPS bonus, in my opinion, is still lackluster compared to Iceheart, even the nerfed version, as we'll talk about here pretty soon. And a lot of people are saying, oh, well, this is only going to benefit hard casting or hard crystal frag casting Sorks or Magplars or some heavy attack build or something, but you don't actually need to do any of that. You can also just medium weave, just like that. This is considered channeling as well. It's interesting, but again, I don't think it's. I find it a very boring set personally, and I feel like even compared to the nerf Iceheart, it's meh, it's useless, or not useless, but like no one's gonna use it in my opinion. I don't know, maybe someone will surprise us with a content or with a build video or something. Unchained Aggressor, reduce the duration of the set's bonus in 6 seconds from 9 seconds. Okay, and reduce the cooldown to 16 seconds from 21 seconds. So definitely, I think a lot of people's concerns about the Unchained Aggressor was that there's just way too much time to have major berserk. Fixed an issue where it's not affected by Jorval's guidance. Oh, Jorval's guidance plus 5-piece Unchained Aggressor build incoming. Okay, so they said we heard loud and clear that this window was far too long for how it could occur. Yeah, and felt too easy to reliably proc off cooldown. Yeah, I think the Unchained Aggressor caught a lot of our eyes, and it's kind of scary. Vykosa. So they listen to the feedback, which is great. This set now reduces the target's weapon and spell damage by up to 20% for 5 seconds with a 15-second cooldown, rather than reducing it by up to a shitty 268 weapon and spell damage for 8 seconds with a 12-second cooldown. Fixed an issue where this set did not replace itself is if another source was applied. I don't know why you would wear 2 Vykosas in the group, but whatever. Based on a lot of feedback we read, the original design of Vykosa being a powerful damage reduction source for a short window was generally a success. However, the set was far too enabling for the very select few groups who could fully utilize its power with its incredibly short duration, leading to huge power deltas and experience with it. The swap to make it more passive with a lesser effect did not yield the results we had hoped for. I mean, it was a really... I mean, if you watched my video on the whole nerf to Vykosa and how they made it completely useless, I hope those weren't the results they were hoping for. So we're putting it back into a category where it's strong for a short period of time, but we've increased that duration a bit to help it be more usable in situations where you haven't perfectly memorized the time frames for each attack. I get it. So, valid point. You want newer players or people still learning the content to not be punished for missing that very short 3-second time frame where they can help the group out with reducing the incoming mechanics from a boss or I don't know, something else. And it can be very punishing if you mistime the Vykosa proc in certain content, especially in Sun and Sanctorium Hard Mode and stuff like that. But it's like, at the same time, if it's going to be used primarily by tanks, and when you tank in this game, it's very easy to kind of catch on to the general patterns of the fight. So I feel like they're like severely underestimating people's ability to learn, maybe I'm overestimating people's ability to get a grasp of it. I feel like the for those of you who don't know, that's something else. For those of you who don't know, Vykosa on the PTS right now, when you bash an enemy you've taunted, you frighten them with a deafening howl, lowering their weapon and spell damage by 20% for 5 seconds. So the 5-second window, fine, perfectly valid, helps newer players. The 20% though, that's going to be a lot of people's questions. Is it worth running now? And courtesy of another myth from the Worst in Slot Discord server, he posted this to me in that server, and he basically went to the PTS. I haven't tested this myself personally. He basically went to the PTS, went to St. Olms. I'm going to assume veteran from these numbers. He applies Vykosa here, and in comparison to the normal exhausted charges he got, which is 3,816, he got 20% less damage roughly at 3,053. So there's all this stuff floating around about how much weapon or spell damage does a boss have. Some people are saying it's 4,000, some people are saying it's 13,000, or not 13,000, 1,300. I personally don't know, but I feel like based on these numbers, we can just basically say, okay, it's just going to be 20% reduction on most attacks, unless I'm mathematically inaccurate, but we'll see. I think in comparison to the first PTS week iteration of Vykosa, this is a much welcome change. I think Vykosa is fine the way it is right now on live, and I guess with this third week iteration of Vykosa, it is still a nerf. Major Maim is still stronger than the 20% weapon and spell damage reduction. And we also have to take a note what they say right here. Additionally, we opted for a percentage reduction, this is pretty important, over a flat decrease to prevent situations where groups could stack this with other damage reduction sources such as mending or weakening enchants and significantly reduce the threat an enemy could pose. Why is there not a spoiler here? What is this, like a sacred spoiler attack? Anyway, they're basically saying, hey, if you try to stack mending, weakening, and other shit that lowers weapon and spell damage of the boss in PvE or something, it's gonna diminish. You won't get as much out of Vykosa as you would just using Vykosa. And honestly, I mean, this change won't really affect most groups in PvE, so I guess cool change, especially just in case for PvP or something, or I guess also just in case for PvE, if people try to like get around this loophole of making boss attacks trivial or boss mechanics trivial. I think that's sort of a good thing that they implemented this thing here, because obviously you don't want to make, in particular for PvE, boss fights even more trivial than they are now with the power creep and this increased CP and increased DPS and so forth. So I think this is a good change. Overall, I think I'm okay with the Vykosa change. We'll see when it hits live and I start using it more, and we'll go from there, because obviously it's kind of hard to tell, because I feel I'm pretty sure, I don't know if they applied minor maim here as well, so you gotta take that in the account. Did they apply minor maim? I haven't asked. I don't know what's the resistances. Were they blocking? Probably. We'll see. I think Vykosa is fine now. Base game. Monster abilities. NPC night play. The damage over time for soul tether now ends. Okay. Crafting economy. I'm really disappointed that they haven't said a I don't know, maybe you guys have been, I haven't really been looking at the forums much except maybe the class rep feedback threads lately. Maybe you guys know, but have they even responded about like the multi-bidding shit? I don't understand what's going on with that. Like, multiple guilds have folded on both NAU. I've heard reports of many guilds folding or can't keep up anymore with the biddings on PS4. So it's like, or I also had a report the other day, an Xbox trade guild closed up. So it's like you literally implemented one of the biggest change to guild traders and the bidding and shit since you changed the time for the trader biddings and so forth. I think that was like a few years ago, and there's no word on it. What happened? Did it miss the mark? Did it hit the mark? There was a ZOS dev on the forums that said they will, heavily keep an eye on it. It's like ZOS Philip Draven. I have no idea what happened with it. I have no clue. I'm very sorely disappointed they haven't mentioned a single thing about that, because that affects more players than you realize. A lot of you probably PvE or PvP or do some other shit besides, handling trade guilds or whatever, but it was not a very good change in my opinion in terms of quality of life for their trade guilds, for their officers, for their GMs. And seeing like nothing under here, it's kind of disappointing, but like almost every incremental patch. But anyway, I digress. Pretty much it's nothing else. That's it. That's the end of the patch notes. Alright, so I don't even know how to unpack this. I've been added, I've been PM'd, I've been messaged about this nerf to Iceheart, what's popularly known right now as a triple nerf to Iceheart. And I've read the forum threads, I've read the Discord servers, I've pretty much seen it all. I've seen a few people actually say they're gonna quit the game because of this nerf. And why the outrage? Why the backlash over the Iceheart nerf? Well, just to give you an example, when I first read the first week PTS patch notes for the Vykosa nerf, and then I read about Bainey's Tormentor set, which offered major maim and major vitality and so forth. One of my initial thoughts was they nerfed Vykosa to promote, or to have people buy their DLC so they can get the better gear. And I can see a lot of people understandably thinking that same thing when they look at the triple nerf to Iceheart, and then later on down the line, they see a buff to a set that everyone thinks is utter garbage or that they don't want. Or rather, they're also, and I understand completely, they also are upset that from their perspective, very understandably so, that ZOS is trying to force them to farm a new set or get them to buy the DLC or something. That's all understandable, and it's affected quite a lot of people because a lot of people do use Iceheart. It's four main groups, trial groups, solo players especially. I think are probably the most affected by the Iceheart nerf. And I say nerf because I feel like, and I'll explain this later, I feel like 2 of the nerfs are fine. And that may be controversial, or you might hate my guts if you are one of these people who are outraged over the nerfs to Iceheart. But honestly, let's be real here. I think we're kind of lying to ourselves if we're saying Iceheart does not slightly overperform in certain aspects. It's not they're kind of lying to ourselves if we're saying Iceheart isn't all that strong or that's rarely used. I've seen people say, "Oh, no one uses Iceheart. Why did they nerf it?" And I'm just like, what? Have you been living under a rock? Okay, so maybe the solo players in the comments won't understand what the hell I'm talking about, but basically, or particularly trial groups, 12-man raids, Iceheart is like the go-to for a lot of progression groups. It's the go-to for even the higher end groups. And it's because it offers such a strong safety net. It's like, couple this set with the use of barrier, which is in itself a completely entirely different subject. I don't even want to touch that subject in this video. We'd be talking for a couple more hours, or at least another 40 minutes about it. I don't want to touch that. But coupled with a few other factors, Iceheart basically removes this element of the game that forces you to learn the game. I mean, I can't really sugarcoat it, because like, I'll give you a story. A few weeks ago, I filled very briefly for a Iceheart Nerf team or group that was progressing it, and I ended up kiting next to this guy for the Storm the Heavens phase. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, you can look up a video on my YouTube channel about the Iceheart mode trial fight. Basically, you just have to move in a way that you're not intruding upon each other's personal space and not overlapping AoEs. But basically, this guy is horrible, absolutely horrible. I fucking hated kiting next to this guy, and I was like, well, why aren't you kiting this way? Why aren't you kiting that way? Why are you doing this? And he's like, oh, I always take it's fine. We can both take a couple AoEs or a couple more AoEs. And I'm like, what? And he's like, well, don't you have Iceheart? And I'm just like, well, so at what point does a set, especially 2-piece monster set, do too much for a lot of people? A lot of people have told me, oh, you're a fucking elitist if you think the nerf to Iceheart is fine. Well, again, I'll explain which part is fine for me and which part isn't fine for me here in a bit. But I'm just like, I mean, do you even know who I am, dude? Like, I've led plenty of progression groups from scratch. I've done everything. I've done 7-month twin progressions in vMall. Like, I've seen it all, from high end to like the worst pug in the zone. And if you watch me stream, I teach pugs, so I know what it's all about. And personally, I feel like these two components right here were sort of a bit too much. I mean, like, some people are saying, oh, Iceheart is perfect. It's the perfect balance between being offensive and defensive, or that it's fine the way it is. But in my opinion, I think it let a lot of people who I think it lets a lot of people get away with certain stuff that they shouldn't get away with in PvE content. And I'm talking strictly about group content or trial content. The fact that you can have an 8.6k shield or so, that's again has resistances and can be amplified by other sources like barrier or even your own harness magicka or dampened magicka. It's a bit ridiculous in my opinion, and it teaches bad habits. And I'm all about promoting PvE to newer players, especially. I'm all about bringing in new raiders, but for me to give someone no advice and be like, like, how do I explain? To give someone no advice at all or something, and I'm just like, hey, here you go, here's a 2-piece monster set, you're good to go. That's sort of, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. So, and then you ask me, okay, fine, maybe the damage shield along with the, damage was a bit too much, because the damage from Iceheart, because it is a 1-piece spell crit piece, the damage difference between people who wore Iceheart and who didn't wear Iceheart in a raid is not really significant. So it's a set that offers both defensive and offensive capabilities a bit too well on both sides. And that's my takeaway from this. The one thing I don't agree with after playing on the PTS, and I actually did a few rounds of Master Marina, because Master Marina is solo content and so forth, and after playing around with it on the PTS for a bit, this is one thing I can definitely see that can be adjusted. I think the fact that it has a pretty much 50% uptime, and that there's such a long, well, not long, but what feels like a significant gap during the fight. This theme keeps popping up. The whole theme of, oh, ESO is a fluid, combat-based game. And it feels like there's this constant struggle between the player base and the devs. You name it. Examples like, cast time, bar swapping, animation canceling. There's this kind of disconnect between the player base and devs sometimes as to what makes the combat so great in ESO. And this, I think, should be probably reverted back to the 6-second internal cooldown rather than 12-second cooldown. I think the damage shield nerf is okay. I mean, honestly, this is still better than this. And the fact that it still will offer damage, it's still significant to take Iceheart over this. But I definitely feel like the cooldown should probably be adjusted, especially for, you know, even players who run 4-man or run shit by themselves. I think that'd be great. Well, yeah, those are my thoughts on it. I feel like even almost a year ago, I felt like Iceheart would have probably been nerfed. I was surprised how long it took them to maybe adjust it a little bit. But here we are, and I think the timing with this was a bit awful. I mean, let's be honest here. This doesn't look very great, right? But yeah, that's it. Those are my thoughts on Iceheart on the Iceheart nerfs. Those are my thoughts on the PTS patch notes version 5.3.2. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on my stream or next time in a different video. Stay safe, have fun, and see you guys next time.